Good morning, boys and girls. We're going to get started with our next reading lesson with Freedom on the Menu. Our last lesson, we did a movie read. Today, we're going to discuss this a little bit further. What we're going to do is we're going to explore the main character's perspective in Freedom on the Menu. Okay, what is her perspective of the civil rights movement? Okay, now what does perspective mean? I'll give you a general overview of what perspective means. Perspective. Different people can see things differently. Therefore, they may not have the same viewpoints in regards to certain situations and issues. So I'll read through one or two examples of what perspective means to get you a better understanding. Two people or characters may have different perspectives. Okay, so in our situation, we're talking more about the characters in our book, and we're looking at the perspective of the characters. Here it says Jonah didn't study for a test. He feels like the test is too difficult. And we have Cassie. Cassie studied for the test. She feels like the test is too easy. Now, these are two different students, and they have two different perspectives about the test. Okay? Let's look at this one. A reader may have a different perspective than a book character. So Ben, a character in a book, thinks it's okay to bully another character. As Lacey reads the book, she is disgusted by Ben's bullying behavior. She thinks bullying is wrong. Okay, so you notice that Ben and Lacey have different perspectives. Is it okay to have a different perspective? Of course. Okay, so perspective is your opinion and the way that you see things. Okay, so when we are reading today, we're going to really take a closer look at Connie and think about her perspective of how she views the whole civil rights movement. All right. So I've been thinking about Connie and how she viewed this experience during the time of the civil rights movement. The story is told in first person, which means it's from her perspective. It's not from Mom's perspective or Dad's. This is from Connie's perspective. And then as we read, I'm not going to reread the entire story. I'm going to go through some pages and highlight areas where we can talk about Connie's perspective on the civil rights movement. All right, here is one area of the book where I had an idea about Connie's perspective on the civil rights movement. I'm going to read it to you. Just about every week, Mama and I went shopping downtown. I loved having her all to myself. Why is that happening? I love having her all to myself for the afternoon. Whenever it was hot or we got tired, we'd head over to the snack bar in the Five and Dime store. We'd stand as we sipped our Cokes because we weren't allowed to sit at the lunch counter. So this shows me from Connie's perspective, right? This is written from her, that Connie has accepted the fact that she's not allowed to sit at the lunch counter. This is normal for her. Okay, so her perspective, what does she see about this whole civil rights movement? It's just a normal thing, right? She doesn't notice that this is not normal. Whereas Mama, if she was writing from her perspective, she might be saying this is not okay, this is not normal, but she's just, yep, this is just a normal day. That's her perspective, right? I'm going to move on. There was another part in the story, and I want us to think about Connie's perspective here. There weren't any signs up in the Five and Dime, but we still knew how it was. Most people didn't expect any change anytime soon. Right? This just shows as a child that Connie has been taught to accept that this is the way things are. That's her perspective. Nothing's going to change. This is the way it is. No big deal. This is life, right? She knows that she does not have the same privileges as whites. Okay, and she doesn't feel like there's anything else. She doesn't know of anything else. This is her perspective. And think about it if the mom wrote this from her perspective, right? It would be a lot different. Let's read this page. The next day, Daddy showed me the newspaper. The headline said, Negro students stand up by sitting down. Okay, this was after they did the sit-in. They sat for hours, said Daddy, peering over the newspaper. I'd be too hungry to wait that long, I said. Connie, they didn't really want food, said Daddy. They wanted to be allowed to get it, same as if they were white, to be treated fairly. So now, if you notice here, this really shows Connie's perspective as well. How? Because Daddy's talking about how they sat for for 4 hours, and Connie says, whoa, I'd be too hungry to wait that long. I would leave. And this is her perspective as a young child. She doesn't understand why they are sitting in on what's the reason for it. So this shows that Connie is looking at the situation literally, right? It shows her perspective on the issue. She doesn't understand why they're sitting down for 4 hours because she's like, I'm hungry, I would leave. And Daddy's trying to tell her, yes, but that's not the point. Okay, they didn't even want food, right? So Daddy has to help her understand that this issue is more about civil rights. Okay, so this is where Daddy's explaining to her because her perspective is different and she's not understanding. Okay. And then this is when in the story when she wants to pick it says, I'm going to pick it downtown, says sister, tomorrow. I want to go too, I said. I'm plenty big enough to hold a sign, and I know I can sit. So now we notice that Connie's perspective on the civil rights issue is starting to change, right? She is starting to realize the point and the purpose and why everyone is doing this. She's starting to realize that it's not okay that whites and blacks are treated differently. Okay, so as we are reading the story, we're kind of seeing this story through the eyes of a young girl, and we're seeing her perspective. So this shows that Connie's starting to change. Her perspective is changing because she's starting to understand it more. She's understanding more about what is happening and wants to be a part of the change. She believes in the cause, and it is important to her now. Okay, so again, think about if this story was told from Daddy's perspective or even brother's perspective, right? From the beginning, the story would be a lot different. Okay, so we're really understanding Connie a little bit more and how she is seeing the whole civil rights movement. So it's really important to make sure that you're able to notice a character's perspective in a story because it's going to help you better understand your story. And noticing a main character's perspective helps us to understand the story, helps us understand the reader's feelings and actions, and it gives us a good idea of what's going on in the book. So now what you're going to do, you're going to try it with your books. Today, when you read your Good Fit books, pay attention to the main character's perspective. Who is telling the story, and what is the perspective on what is going on in the story? Okay, what are they saying? Whether it's maybe a book about basketball, what is their perspective on basketball? Do they like it? How do you know that they like it? What do they think about basketball? Or say there's a situation, a bullying situation. What is their perspective on that bullying situation? Think about Mr. Fokker. When we read him, his one student was bullying Trisha, right? His perspective was that was not okay and that would never happen again, right? Whereas maybe, say, for example, another teacher, their perspective, which actually I don't think would ever happen, but maybe a student would walk by and see that and just think, not a big deal, I'm just going to keep going. Okay, so it's important to understand the perspective of your characters, and it can also help you to figure out what type of character they are, right? All right, so now what you're going to do today, like I said, and I just gave some examples, is think about your main character. Who's telling the story and what is their perspective on whatever's going on, whether there's a problem or whatever the topic may be in your story. Okay, so I want you to kind of pay close attention to that while you're reading today, and I want you to write in your writer's notebook about it. Okay, I'm going to share this slide with you, this whole presentation with you. I'm going to put it with the to-do list as one of your materials that you can use to help you and to go back on to, review perspective. Okay, I will do that. So today we also have writing. So this is your combined reading and writing. Your writing lesson today is to write in your writer's notebook after you read your book for 15 to 20 minutes and write about your character's perspective in the story. Okay, and like I said, I'll share this slide with you, this presentation, so that you're able, if you forget what perspective is, go back. And of course, you can always rewatch my video as well. All right, so we're reading today and writing in your writer's notebook. So this is reading and writing combined. All right, boys and girls, have a great day. Bye. Oh, I don't know how to stop sharing.